Welcome back. Today we're breaking down a seismic global shift. 10 Western nations are demanding mass deportations in 2025. We'll go country by country, unpacking new laws and what they mean for millions. Let's dive in. This is unprecedented. First up, the United States, where the political climate is heating up like never before. In recent months, talk of launching the largest deportation operation in American history has moved from fringe discussions to the center of mainstream politics, dominating headlines and sparking fierce debate across the nation. The proposed plan is sweeping in scope. It would mobilize not only federal agencies but also local law enforcement and even the National Guard, all tasked with targeting and removing millions of undocumented immigrants from communities across the country. This would require the construction of massive new holding facilities, trigger a wave of legal battles in courts nationwide, and fundamentally reshape the fabric of countless neighborhoods, raising questions about the future of American society. Supporters of the plan argue that it's a necessary step to protect national security and uphold the rule of law, gathering at rallies and demanding swift government action to enforce immigration policies. But opponents warn of dire consequences, the potential for humanitarian crises, the heartbreak of family separations, and the risk of severe economic fallout as industries dependent on immigrant labor face uncertainty. Civil rights organizations are already mobilizing, preparing lawsuits to challenge the plan in court, while protests are erupting in cities and towns nationwide, reflecting the deep divisions within the country. The nation is more polarized than ever, with passionate voices on both sides. As 2025 approaches, the United States faces a critical test of its values, legal principles, and sense of identity. The debate is fierce and unrelenting: security versus human rights, order versus compassion, with each side convinced of the righteousness of its cause. And the world is watching closely. The outcome of this political firestorm will send shockwaves far beyond U.S. borders, influencing global conversations about migration, human rights, and national sovereignty. America stands at a crossroads, facing choices that will define its future for generations to come. Across the Atlantic, the United Kingdom is making headlines with its renewed commitment to the controversial Rwanda policy, a plan that has sparked intense debate both at home and abroad. The government is not only sticking to this approach but is also doubling down, positioning it as a central pillar of its immigration strategy for the coming years. As we look ahead to 2025, the UK government is expanding the Rwanda plan, aiming to use it as a core solution to manage migration flows and deter illegal crossings. This move is part of a broader effort to reshape the country's approach to immigration, with ministers arguing that decisive action is needed to restore public confidence in the system. To make this possible, new laws have been introduced that seek to override ongoing legal challenges and officially designate Rwanda as a safe country for deportees. These legislative changes are designed to fast-track deportations, reducing the ability of migrants to appeal and accelerating the removal process for those deemed to be in the UK unlawfully. The Home Office has been granted expanded powers, allowing officials to locate, detain, and remove individuals without legal status more efficiently. This includes a significant increase in immigration raids, more frequent status checks, and a greater emphasis on enforcement throughout the country. Supporters of the Rwanda plan argue that it represents a necessary step to regain control of the nation's borders and uphold the rule of law. They believe it will deter dangerous channel crossings and send a clear message that the UK is serious about enforcing its immigration rules. However, critics are equally vocal, describing the policy as inhumane, ineffective, and a potential breach of international law and human rights obligations. Alongside the Rwanda plan, the government is also tightening rules for legal migrants and those who overstay their visas. New measures include stricter visa requirements, increased scrutiny of applications, and harsher penalties for those found to be in violation of immigration laws. The national debate over these policies is deeply polarized, with echoes of the Brexit era still resonating throughout the country. Many see the current immigration crackdown as a fulfillment of promises made during the Brexit campaign, while others worry about the social and economic consequences of such a hardline approach. Human rights organizations, religious leaders, and even some members of parliament are pushing back against the Rwanda plan and related measures. They warn that these policies risk undermining the UK's reputation on the world stage and could have lasting impacts on vulnerable individuals seeking safety. As the government pushes forward, the future of UK immigration policy remains fiercely contested. The issue dominates headlines, divides communities, and continues to fuel passionate debate across the nation. One thing is clear: the battle over the UK's approach to immigration is far from over, and the outcome will shape the country's identity for years to come. Germany, once celebrated for its open-door policy and reputation as a haven for those fleeing conflict, is now undergoing a dramatic shift. The government is pushing for what it calls large-scale deportations, marking a significant change in its approach to migration and asylum. This new direction is not just a policy tweak, it's a fundamental rethinking of how Germany handles those who seek refuge within its borders. Recently introduced laws are designed to accelerate the removal process for those whose asylum applications have been rejected. These laws also grant authorities broader powers, such as conducting more frequent searches and extending the periods during which individuals can be held in detention. The government argues that these measures are necessary to restore order and maintain public trust in the immigration system. The primary targets of these new policies are rejected asylum seekers and individuals who have been convicted of crimes. Authorities say this focus is intended to prioritize public safety and ensure that those who do not have a legal right to stay are returned to their countries of origin. To make these deportations possible, Germany is actively negotiating agreements with countries of origin. By leveraging economic incentives and diplomatic pressure, German officials hope to secure cooperation from governments that have previously been reluctant to accept returnees. These deals are seen as crucial for the success of the repatriation push. This policy shift is largely a response to mounting public pressure and the growing influence of far-right political parties. These groups have capitalized on concerns about integration, security, and social cohesion, pushing immigration to the forefront of the national debate. However, critics, including human rights organizations and refugee advocates, warn that these measures could trigger humanitarian crises. They argue that the new laws risk undermining Germany's long-standing commitment to asylum rights and could leave vulnerable people in dangerous situations. Many of those facing deportation have lived in Germany for years, built lives, and become part of their communities. Some are children who have known no other home. Their integration into German society raises difficult questions about identity, belonging, and the true cost of these policies. The government insists it is striving to balance the need for effective border control with its humanitarian values. Officials say the goal is to protect both national security and the rights of those who genuinely need protection. As the debate rages on in Parliament, on television, and in the streets, one thing is clear: the issue of migration and repatriation remains deeply divisive, with no easy resolution in sight. France has passed its toughest immigration law in decades, making deportations easier and access to welfare harder. Foreign nationals convicted of crimes face removal, even if they have deep roots in France. The law restricts birthright citizenship and family reunification, and introduces migration quotas. Macron's government fractured over the bill, which only passed after concessions to the right. Protests have erupted, with critics calling the law discriminatory and a betrayal of French values. Human rights groups are challenging its constitutionality. France's political center has shifted sharply right. The legal and social battle continues into 2025. In Italy, Prime Minister Meloni's government is escalating its anti-immigration agenda. Closed ports, new detention centers, and offshoring asylum processing to Albania are central to the 2025 plan. NGO rescue ships face strict limitations, and migrants can be detained for up to 18 months. The government's hardline stance has strong domestic support. Critics, including the UN and EU, condemn the policies as violations of international law. Italy is testing the limits of European border enforcement. The humanitarian cost is rising. Italy's approach is a model for Europe's new hard line. Spain, once pro-migrant, is now tightening enforcement and ramping up deportations. Surging arrivals in the Canary Islands have overwhelmed resources, prompting closer cooperation with African nations to stop departures. Deportation processes are being streamlined, focusing on irregular arrivals and those denied asylum. The ruling coalition is split, but political pressure demands tougher action. Spain is balancing EU demands for control with its human rights image. The policy is increasingly about enforcement over integration. Contradictions abound, but the direction is clear. 2025 will see more control and more removals. Even Canada is shifting, quietly but decisively, toward tighter borders and faster removals. The closure of Roxham Road and new caps on international students mark a major policy reversal. Public pressure over housing and costs is driving the change. The government is expediting asylum decisions and removals. Canada's debate is less about culture, more about logistics and economics. The era of open doors is ending. Canada is trying to balance its humanitarian image with domestic realities. The trend is toward restriction. Australia, long known for tough border policies, is doubling down in 2025. After a court ruling against indefinite detention, new emergency laws give the government sweeping powers, curfews, monitoring, and criminal penalties for non-cooperation. The goal ensure non-citizens with no right to stay are removed, even if it means jail for those who can't be deported. Critics call it draconian and a dangerous precedent. The government argues it's about community safety. The legal battle is fierce. Australia's approach is a flashpoint for rights versus security. The stakes are high. The Netherlands is veering sharply right after a far-right election victory. Plans include opting out of EU asylum rules, immediate deportations for rejected applicants, and offshoring asylum processing. The shift is driven by a housing crisis and a sense of national overcrowding. The new government promises to put Dutch citizens first. Business leaders warn of economic risks, but the political mood is uncompromising. Traditional Dutch tolerance is clashing with rising nationalism. 2025 will test whether hardline rhetoric becomes reality. The Netherlands is a country to watch. Sweden's era of humanitarian leadership is over. The government, backed by the far right, is prioritizing deportations over integration. New rules restrict family reunification, permanent residency, and empower authorities to find and remove undocumented migrants. Proposals to make public workers report migrants have sparked outrage. The system is being re-engineered for removals, not residency. The shift is a response to social challenges and rising crime. Critics say Sweden is abandoning its open, tolerant identity. 2025 will see Sweden grappling with its future. That's the list. 10 Western nations, all moving toward stricter borders and mass deportations. The details differ, but the trend is undeniable. 2025 will reshape millions of lives. What do you think? Are these policies necessary, or do they go too far? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time.